So Pete, it's great that you could be with us here today. I'd love it if you could explain a little bit to everyone about your background and how you got involved in the anti-slavery movement.
Cool. Well, my story around modern slavery and human trafficking started probably back in 2009 when myself and a group of friends, we were in a band called Blue Tree, and we travelled to Thailand, to a place called Pattaya, to be part of a conference there. And for someone like myself who was coming from East Belfast, kind of sheltered background, it was the first time in Pattaya in Thailand that I encountered anything like what I'd seen. So it was a seaside resort, probably the sex trafficking capital of the world at that point in time. So yeah, coming from East Belfast, seeing that was a complete shock to my system.
What did you see there?
Well, for example, there's a place at that time was called Walking Street, and it was about a quarter-mile long street filled with pubs and clubs, which essentially are brothels. So every one who works there is essentially a prostitute. So walking down that quarter-mile long street was just filled with these pubs and clubs and all the girls out working there. So walking down that street it's very different to the background I had.
What kind of ages were the girls?
At that point in time, my understanding of it, they all looked relatively young to me, but the more I knew, there was a broad age range of girls there, and yeah, it was just complete kind of cultural shock for somebody at my age at that time.
And where were they coming from?
Well, as I said, at the point I didn't know. I just thought, oh, this is normal here. But as I researched it more, I became to understand that a lot of those girls were forced and brought there from outside of that area for the purposes of sexual exploitation.
So you saw that, and then what?
So when we were there, we wrote a song called God of the City, and we came back to Belfast, finished off the song, and on the way home, I was completely caught by what I'd seen and wanted to know more. Read a book on the plane, which is an achievement in itself for me, just reading a book. But I read a book called Sex Slaves, and that completely rocked me to the core. And we came back, and myself and one of my good friends, Aaron, had this moment where we were walking not too far away from actually here. And we were walking along, we said to each other, we need to do something about this. We need to get involved in trying to see an end to this. And our song, God of the City, ended up doing really well in the States. Chris Tomlin picked it up, covered it, and used it in the Passion album. The song then ended up growing legs and having a life of its own, and people were able to then take this declaration of hope, essentially, and carry that into their city. And for me, even personally, when I think about Belfast, and we think about the history of Belfast, that was a declaration for Belfast just as much as it was for Pattaya or any other city. We can look at all of our cities and go, well, greater things are yet to come here, and greater things are still to be done. So yeah, that was kind of the heartbeat of it for the city.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think I heard that song, and it resonates with so many people all over the world. It was at that time one of the most sung songs in the Christian world. But I think for people to be able to see their own location and it could improve, it's so good. And it gives us a sense of an understanding for Pattaya, but for also here, that we're going to see greater things coming. And for those people who are enslaved, those people who are victims of modern day slavery, exploitation, human trafficking, whatever label you want to put on it, wherever it is, that greater things can come from there. So that was your time with Blue Tree and taking that song wider and having an influence. But what did you do specifically then on the back of the song in this issue? Yeah,
so we were just really impassioned by what we'd seen in Pattaya. Yeah. And Aaron and I were like rocked to the core, and we were like, Aaron had a kid at that point, and I just got married and thinking about a family, and when that comes into the equation and you think, oh, people need someone to stand in that gap and fight on their behalf when they can't fight, and be the voice to the voiceless, as it says in the song. And so we were able to strike up a partnership with Viva Networks and Chad Dai in Cambodia to help raise money for 29 small projects in Cambodia that range from education programs to extraction out of sex exploitation and modern slavery to right the way through to rehabilitation. So the vast spectrum of intervention work. So we were able to tour around America and raise money and sew that into that Doorsteps 2 project that was managed by Chab Dai in Cambodia. And I was able then to travel and see some of those projects a few years later after I'd left the band and stopped touring as much, and see what was happening on the ground and learn more and educate myself more around the issue of modern slavery, specifically in Southeast Asia. But then I became a wee bit more aware of what was going on here in Northern Ireland and in Belfast. And it's one thing, I think, when we look at modern slavery and human trafficking, we think very distant. You know, we think, oh, it happens somewhere else. But when you sit in your own city and you hear those stories fitting in your own context and your own world, we're known as the fighting Irish, you know, like, and that will rise the fight in anyone, Irish or not. And that was the moment where I was like, well, we need to think about doing something here on our own shores. It's all well and good doing stuff across the world, but we've got to do stuff here too.
Yeah. So knowing that you needed to do something is one thing. Lots of people can see problems, you know, a spectrum of different issues that exist across the world. But when we look at this specific issue and the hurt that you'd seen, you know, you've seen it internationally, you know what's happening locally. I've been amazed this week having to travel around and meet with different other organisations that you've been partnering with and kind of working with, and hearing the stories firsthand of individuals who are held enslaved, whether it be on fishing vessels, in manufacturing basis, in sexual exploitation. You know, the reality is horrendous and horrific for so many. But what happened next in the story?
Yeah, so there was a conversation brewing, you know, within Belfast and Northern Ireland of kind of like-minded individuals. So we had a group called Belfast Abolition Collective, and I was kind of being brought into the equation because I was doing stuff in Southeast Asia, and so there was a conversation around modern slavery and human trafficking, and there was maybe a lack of kind of awareness and response here in Belfast. And then two of my friends came over to actually speak about something completely different, and we ended up having a conversation in my front room about modern slavery and human trafficking and how it was here in Northern Ireland and what was happening, and fisheries and agriculture and sex exploitation. You know, at that point in time, I think Belfast had the highest demand for sex workers in all of Europe, and they almost had the same moment that I had in Pattaya, where they went home and they were like, we need to do something about this. So 2 days later, they arrived back at my house and they said, Pete, listen, we need to do something about this. So we decided that we were going to run an event. It was going to be like an urban sports kind of DJ music event in Belfast. And we started gathering people around us to help us do that. But as we did that and we fed that out into the wider network of people that were having this conversation, it ended up just snowballing, and we ended up doing a week of events with over 20 organisations and just loads of events over a week. And out of that, No More Traffik was born. And initially, the thing that we just thought we were going to do as an event, all of a sudden galvanised a lot of people together, a lot of people who were thinking and caring about the same issues. And since then, that was in 2011, we registered as a charity with the Charities Commission here in Northern Ireland in 2012. Since then, we've been around helping shape legislation, being a part of governmental strategy with the Department of Justice. We help raise general public awareness, we advocate for victims, and we also train frontline professionals. So the police service, border force agents, medical professionals, social workers, homeless shelter staff, anyone who be encountering the potential victim of modern slavery in their frontline work. We would train and be around to help shape and help them understand what the signs are for modern slavery and human trafficking and how to report those effectively into the proper systems.
So good. I mean, we always, at Hope for Justice, we would say, we're not going to end this on our own. We need every organisation to be working in collaboration, and across all of our programmes internationally, we've got so many partners, so many amazing people that we join arms with to be able to do what we do. But I know for me, whenever we've had conversations before, I've felt a real sense of connection, but also that there's kind of connection that goes predating kind of even this conversation. Do you want to talk to you a little bit about that in terms of how did you engage with Hope for Justice in the journey?
Yeah, so it's kind of almost like coming full circle a wee bit, and so we jump back in time to when we were touring in Blue Tree, and God of the City was going all over the world at that point in time. So we got approached to come over to England to play in this event called The Stand, which is your first event, right?
Very first event, the very first thing that I got to stage manage the event. Yeah. So I think that becomes a very special part in the actual journey itself, because there were a number of bands that we invited in to play on that day. Not been done before, putting on our very first event to pull people together, bring other NGOs to talk about what was happening on the ground, other charities who could share their stories, share, the hope of what we wanted to try and do. And it's so good that you could be a part of that. And now we're fast forwarding from 12, 13 years on from that today. And for anybody watching it later, it'll be obviously later than that, but going back to 2008 to now, circling back, it'd be great for you to share Hope for Justice, No More Traffik coming together to be one under the banner of Hope for Justice. Why do you think that you would want to do that now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think when we look at human trafficking and modern slavery, the crime itself is so well-resourced and well-networked. And we need a response to that crime that is better resourced and better networked than the crime, if we want to see it end. Yeah. And that is the heartbeat of this, is that we can't do it on our own. No More Traffik, Hope for Justice, we can't solve it on our own, in and of ourselves, just impossible. So we need to come together. We need to release more resource, release more opportunity, release better thinking, better connections, better partnerships, better training for frontline professionals. And when we had the conversation, it's nearly 8 months ago, it just landed it was almost like a dovetail, like a beautiful moment for yourselves and our organisation, as we were looking broader and we were looking at Northern Ireland and some of the emerging issues within our nation, but even broader as we look at the island of Ireland with the Republic of Ireland being downgraded to Tier 2 in the Trafficking in Persons report. All of these moments in time are happening now, and we are in desperate need of a better response here in Northern Ireland, but also on the island of Ireland. And that is the stuff that's why now. That's the stuff that's exciting.
I love it. And I think anyone that we've gone and looked to try and work with, collaborate, or go beyond to merge with, we've always said, why? And allowing the why to be the reason that drives us and propels us to do so much more. The what of what we do is it can constantly change and evolve as we try and tackle modern slavery across the board in whatever way we possibly can. It may adapt, it may change. Some countries it may be one thing today that might evolve and become something different. But if the why of it we are together on, we can go off on that journey. Yeah. And I think I've so appreciated even just chatting to you about the potential of the difference that can be made here, about how actually now having a strategy that can be effective across the whole island, and then beyond that as a foothold into Europe, what that might look like for Hope for Justice. I think coming together at this moment in time is perfect for Hope for Justice to be able to make a much bigger impact. So I want to thank you for the willingness, and for your board, the willingness to come alongside Hope for Justice and talk about this as a potential, and then now get to this stage. And super excited to have you on team. So excited about what the potential is just in some of the meetings that we've been having and the difference that potentially we can bring here. It shows me that there is a possibility that we could be a part of ending this for good. Yeah. And I so thank you for that, and thank you for your heart and your legacy that you're bringing to this. Even the connections and, you know, the countless hours that you've poured into this, and other people have, volunteers to make it happen. We never want to take it for granted at Hope for Justice that people just arrive and think, you know, right, go, let's go. It's more, we want to assume, wow, these people are absolute warehouses filled with so much great potential of what they've done, and we benefit with that when we step into a country. So standing shoulder to shoulder, merging together, super excited about what the future's going to bring.
Great. We're so buzzed, so excited about the potential this has for seeing people free and out of that injustice in Northern Ireland and the island of Ireland. So we're really excited about what the next chapter looks like.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pete.
No, thank you.